A little girl finds a man bleeding out in an alley, his arms wrapped around a whimpering German shepherd that refuses to leave his side. She thinks he's just another victim of the city's violence. She has no idea he's Delta Force, one of the most lethal operators in the world. And she definitely doesn't know that saving him will put her directly in the crosshairs of the cartel that just tried to kill him. Because the men who did this, they're coming back to finish the job. And when they do, they'll learn that even a wounded soldier is more dangerous than they could ever imagine. Before we begin, comment wherever in the world you are watching from. We always like to know how far our stories travel, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. The rain in El Paso, Texas doesn't fall softly. It hammers down like it has something to prove, washing the grime off the streets only to reveal more grime underneath. It's a border city, a place where two worlds collide and where the collision leaves scars. The alleys here smell like wet concrete and desperation, and most people know better than to walk through them after dark. Most people. But not 8-year-old Maria Reyes. She's too young to understand that some places are dangerous, and too stubborn to listen when her abuela tells her to stay away from the old warehouse district. Maria is small for her age, with dark hair that her grandmother braids every morning and eyes that are too knowing for a child who still believes in fairy tales. She lives with her abuela in a tiny apartment above a bodega, just her and the old woman against the world. Her parents, they're gone. Not dead, but gone in the way that hurts just as much. They crossed the border looking for work and never came back. So it's just Maria and abuela now, surviving on the old woman's social security check and the kindness of neighbors who leave groceries on their doorstep when they think no one's looking. Tonight, Maria is out because she's looking for Manchas, the stray cat she's been feeding scraps to for the past 3 months. Abuela told her not to go out, not with the rain coming down and not with the sirens that have been wailing all evening. But Manchas is pregnant, and Maria knows the cat is scared of thunder. She's got a can of tuna in her jacket pocket and a flashlight that barely works, and she's determined to find her. The alley behind the old Martinez furniture warehouse is where Manchas usually hides. It's narrow, barely wide enough for Maria to walk through without her shoulders brushing the brick walls on either side. The dumpsters here overflow with cardboard and broken furniture, perfect hiding spots for a scared cat. Maria calls out softly, her voice barely audible over the drumming rain. Manchas, Manchas, ven aquí. That's when she hears it. Not the mewling of a cat, but something else. A low, guttural whine that makes the hair on the back of her neck stand up. It's coming from deeper in the alley, past the dumpsters, where the shadows are so thick her flashlight can barely cut through them. Maria hesitates. She's young, but she's not stupid. She knows that sound doesn't belong to Manchas. But there's something in that whine, something desperate and hurt that pulls at her. Before she can talk herself out of it, she's moving forward, her sneakers splashing through puddles, her flashlight beam dancing across the wet pavement. And then she sees them. A man is slumped against the brick wall, his body twisted at an angle that doesn't look natural. His clothes are dark, soaked through with rain, and something else, something that looks black in the dim light, but Maria knows is red. Blood. There's so much of it. It's pooled around him, mixing with the rainwater, creating dark rivers that flow between the broken pieces of asphalt. But it's not the man that catches Maria's attention first, it's the dog. The German shepherd is massive, bigger than any dog Maria has ever seen. He's positioned between the man and the mouth of the alley, his body low, his ears flat against his skull. His fur is matted with rain and mud, and there's blood on him too, though Maria can't tell if it's his or the man's. The dog's eyes catch the flashlight beam, glowing an eerie green, and that whine comes again, desperate and pleading. Maria freezes. She's never been afraid of dogs, but this one looks like a wolf, like something wild and dangerous. But then the dog does something that changes everything. He looks back at the man, then at Maria, then back at the man. And he whines again, louder this time, more insistent. He's not protecting the man from her, he's asking for help. Maria takes a step forward. The dog tenses but doesn't growl. Another step. The dog's tail gives a single, uncertain wag. By the time Maria is close enough to see the man's face, the dog has moved aside, allowing her access but staying close, watching. The man's eyes are closed. His face is pale, almost grey, and there's a cut above his eyebrow that's still bleeding. His breathing is shallow, each breath a struggle. Maria has seen enough telenovelas with Abuela to know what shock looks like, what dying looks like. This man is dying. Her hand shakes as she reaches for her phone. It's old, a hand-me-down from a neighbour, and it barely works half the time. But right now, it's all she has. She's about to dial 911 when the man's eyes flutter open. They're pale blue, startling against his ashen face, and for a moment they're unfocused, looking through her rather than at her. Then they sharpen, locking onto hers with an intensity that makes her breath catch. No. His voice is a rasp, barely audible over the rain. No hospital. No police. Maria stares at him. She doesn't understand. If he doesn't go to a hospital, he'll die. But there's something in his eyes, something that looks like fear, but deeper, more primal. Desperation. The dog whines again, pressing his head against the man's shoulder. The man's hand, trembling with effort, comes up to rest on the dog's neck. Good boy, Ranger. Good boy. His eyes find Maria's again. Please. They'll kill me. They'll kill him. And that's when Maria notices the bullet holes. There are two of them that she can see. One in his left shoulder and one in his side, just above his hip. The fabric of his black tactical shirt is shredded, and the wounds are still bleeding, though slower now. Someone shot him. Someone tried to kill him. And from the way he's looking at her, someone might come back to finish the job. Maria should run. Every instinct she has is screaming at her to run, to get away, to call the police and let them handle this. But she looks at the dog, at the way he's pressed against his handler, protecting him even though he's probably hurt too. She looks at the man's face, at the pain etched into every line, and she thinks about her parents, about how they went looking for help and found none, about how they disappeared into a system that didn't care. She makes a decision that will change her life forever. Okay, she whispers. Okay, I'll help you. Getting the man to his feet is harder than Maria thought possible. He's heavy, easily 200 pounds of muscle and gear, and even with him trying to help, it's like trying to move a building. The dog, Ranger, seems to understand what they're doing. He positions himself on the man's other side, pressing against him, providing support. Together, slowly, painfully, they get the man upright. He leans heavily on Maria, his arm draped across her shoulders, his weight nearly crushing her. But she plants her feet and pushes back, refusing to let him fall. One step, then another. The alley seems to stretch on forever, and every few feet the man stumbles, nearly taking them both down. But Ranger is there, always there, pressing against them, keeping them upright. By the time they reach the street, Maria's legs are shaking and her shoulders are screaming. The man is barely conscious, his head lolling against his chest, his breathing ragged. But they're moving. The apartment is only 2 blocks away, but it might as well be 2 miles. Here's the thing about El Paso at night. People don't ask questions. They see a little girl helping a drunk man home. They look away. They see blood on the pavement. They step around it. It's not cruelty, not exactly. It's survival. In a city where the wrong question can get you killed, ignorance is a shield. Maria uses that to her advantage. She keeps her head down, keeps moving, and prays that no one looks too closely. Ranger walks beside them, his presence somehow making them more invisible. Just another hard luck story in a city full of them. The stairs up to the apartment are a nightmare. The man can barely lift his feet, and Maria has to practically drag him up each step. Ranger goes first, looking back every few seconds, his eyes worried. By the time they reach the third-floor landing, Maria is crying from exhaustion, her shoulders bruised from the man's weight. But they're here. They made it. Abuela opens the door before Maria can knock. The old woman's eyes go wide, taking in the scene. The bloody man. The massive dog. Her granddaughter's tear-streaked face. For a moment, Maria thinks Abuela will slam the door, will call the police, will do the sensible thing. But then something shifts in the old woman's expression. Her jaw sets, her shoulders square, and she steps aside. "Get him inside," she says in Spanish, her voice sharp with command. Quickly before someone sees, they half carry, half drag the man into the apartment. It's tiny, just 2 rooms and a bathroom, but it's clean and warm and safe. They lay him on the couch, and it's only then that Maria sees just how bad the injuries are. The bullet wound in his shoulder has soaked through his entire shirt. The one in his side is worse, still bleeding steadily. Abuela is already moving, her hands steady despite her age. She's pulling out sheets, towels, a first aid kit that looks like it's seen better days. "Maria, boil water, as much as you can, and bring me the sewing kit. Move, child." As Maria rushes to obey, she hears Abuela speaking to the man in English, her accent thick, but her words clear. "I was a nurse," she's saying. "Long time ago, but I remember. You stay awake, you understand? You stay with me." The man's eyes open again, finding Abuela's face. "Thank you," he whispers. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "You can apologize by living." Abuela snaps. "Now be quiet and let me work." Ranger has positioned himself by the door, his body tense, his ears swiveling at every sound from the hallway. He's standing guard, Maria realizes, protecting them from whatever is out there. As Maria fills pots with water, her hands shaking so badly she nearly drops them, she hears Abuela muttering in Spanish. "Madre de Dios, what have we gotten ourselves into?" Maria wants to know the same thing. Who is this man? Why did someone shoot him? And why is she so certain that helping him was the right thing to do? The answers, she'll learn, are more complicated and more dangerous than she could ever imagine. The man's name is Marcus Cole, and he's been dead for 48 hours. Not actually dead, but officially dead. Declared killed in action during a classified operation that doesn't exist in any official record. That's how Delta Force works. When things go wrong, they erase you from the books and move on. But Marcus isn't the kind of man who stays erased. 48 hours ago, he was part of a 6-man team conducting surveillance on a cartel compound just across the border in Juarez. The target was Diego Salazar, a mid-level enforcer who'd gotten ambitious. Intelligence suggested Salazar was expanding operations, moving product through new channels, and had just taken delivery of something big. The team's job was simple. Get eyes on the compound, identify the package, call it in. No contact, no engagement. Ghost in, ghost out. It should have been routine. Marcus had done 100 operations just like it. But routine is how you get killed. The compound was a sprawling estate on the outskirts of Juarez, all white walls and red tile roofs, looking more like a resort than a fortress. But the dozen armed guards patrolling the perimeter told a different story. Marcus and his team set up on a ridge overlooking the compound, using night vision and thermal imaging to track movement inside. That's when they saw it. A shipping container being unloaded in the courtyard, and from the way Salazar's men were handling it, it wasn't drugs. It was too careful, too precise. They were treating it like explosives. Marcus called it in. Command told them to hold position and maintain surveillance. Backup was 30 minutes out. But 30 minutes in the field is an eternity, and their position had just been compromised. Ranger smelled them first. The dog's head came up, his body going rigid, his nose twitching. Marcus trusted his canine partner's instincts more than any piece of tech. He signaled his team. They had company. The ambush was professional. Cartel soldiers came from 3 sides at once, automatic weapons lighting up the night. Marcus's team returned fire, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, his brothers fell. Thompson, Martinez, Jackson, Reynolds, Davis. Each name burned into Marcus's memory as he watched them go down. He and Ranger made a run for it, fighting their way down the ridge toward the border. Marcus took a round in the shoulder, then another in his side. He should have gone down, should have bled out on that hillside. But he kept moving, kept fighting, because stopping meant dying, and dying meant Ranger died too. They made it across the border somehow, Marcus barely conscious, Ranger half dragging him through the desert. They found shelter in an abandoned building, and Marcus used his emergency medical kit to pack his wounds. It wasn't enough. He knew it wasn't enough. He was dying, slowly but surely. He couldn't go to a hospital. If Salazar had intel good enough to ambush a Delta team, he had reach on the American side. Hospital meant questions. Questions meant records. Records meant Salazar would find him and finish the job. Marcus needed to disappear, needed to get the information about that shipping container to someone he could trust. But first, he needed to survive the night. He'd stumbled into that alley looking for shelter, planning to hole up until he was strong enough to move again. He hadn't planned on an 8-year-old girl with a can of tuna and more courage than sense. Now, lying on Abuela's couch while the old woman's surprisingly steady hands work on his wounds, Marcus thinks about what he's done. He's brought a war to their doorstep. Salazar won't stop looking. He can't. That shipping container Marcus saw, it's big enough to bring down entire networks if the right people find out about it. And Marcus is the only surviving witness. Abuela works in silence, her face a mask of concentration. She's removed the bullets, both of them, with nothing but a pair of tweezers and a bottle of vodka for sterilization. The pain is excruciating, but Marcus has been trained to compartmentalize. Pain is just information. It tells you you're alive. When she's done, Abuela sits back, wiping her bloody hands on a towel. "You're lucky," she says in English. "The bullets missed anything vital, but you've lost a lot of blood. You need rest. You need antibiotics. You need a real hospital." "Can't," Marcus rasps. His voice is getting stronger, which is a good sign. "They'll find me." Abuela's eyes narrow. "Who will find you? Who did this?" Marcus looks at Maria, who's standing in the doorway, her eyes wide. He doesn't want to say it in front of her, doesn't want to put that knowledge in her head. But Abuela follows his gaze and understands. "Maria, go to your room," Abuela commands. "But Abuela—" "Now, child." Maria goes, but Marcus knows she's listening from behind the door. "Smart kid." Salazar cartel. Marcus says quietly. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. They killed my team. They'll kill anyone who helped me." Abuela is quiet for a long moment. Then she stands, moving to the window, looking down at the street below. Her voice, when she speaks, is soft but hard as steel. "I know that name. Salazar. His people. They killed my son. Maria's father. He was just trying to work to send money home. But he saw something too, and they killed him for it." She turns back to Marcus, and there are tears in her eyes, but fire too. "So you listen to me, soldier. You stay here, you rest, you heal, and then you make them pay. You understand? You make them pay for all of it." Marcus nods. He understands. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about justice. Ranger, who's been lying by the door, suddenly lifts his head. His ears swivel forward, and a low growl rumbles in his chest. Marcus tenses, ignoring the pain screaming through his body. "What is it, boy?" The dog moves to the window, looking down at the street. Marcus forces himself to sit up, and Abuela helps him to the window. Down below, a black SUV has pulled up in front of the bodega. 4 men get out, and even from 3 stories up, Marcus can see the weapons concealed under their jackets. They're here. Diego Salazar doesn't like loose ends. In his line of work, loose ends get you killed or worse, sent to a Mexican prison where even cartel connections can't always protect you. So when his men came back from the ambush with 5 confirmed kills, but no body for the 6th American, Diego knew he had a problem. The American soldier had been wounded, badly from the blood trail they followed to the border. He should have died in the desert, should have bled out or been picked off by one of the patrols, but the trail went cold on the American side, which meant the soldier had found help or found shelter or both. Diego put out the word. His network on the American side wasn't as extensive as he'd like, but it was thorough. Informants in hospitals, clinics, even pharmacies. Anyone treating a gunshot wound, he'd know about it. He had people watching the border crossings, the bus stations, anywhere a wounded man might try to escape. But days passed and nothing. The American had vanished. That's when Diego started thinking differently. A wounded soldier wouldn't go to official channels, wouldn't risk exposure. He'd go underground, find someone who wouldn't ask questions. Someone in the immigrant community, maybe. Someone who had reason to distrust the authorities. Diego had his people start asking around in the neighborhoods closest to where the blood trail ended. And that's when he caught a break. A local dealer, low-level and desperate to curry favor, mentioned seeing a little girl helping a drunk man. Wouldn't mean anything except the dealer noticed the girl was struggling, like the man was heavier than a normal drunk. And there was a big dog with them. A German shepherd, military-looking. Diego knows all about Delta Force and their canine partners, knows they're trained to be more than pets. They're weapons, tools, partners. A Delta operator wouldn't abandon his dog any more than he'd abandon his weapon. So Diego and 3 of his best men are here, parked outside a bodega in a neighborhood where people know not to look too closely. They're not here for subtlety. They're here to find the American and finish what they started. Diego steps out of the SUV, his expensive boots splashing in a puddle. He's dressed like he's going to a business meeting, which in a way he is. Suit jacket, pressed shirt, gold watch. He likes to look professional. Makes people think he's civilized, right up until he puts a bullet in their head. He nods to his men. Start at the bodega, ask nice. If that doesn't work, stop being nice. They're about to enter the shop when Diego's phone buzzes. It's a text from his boss, the man whose name people don't say out loud, the man who turns politicians into puppets and makes entire police departments look the other way. The text is simple. No witnesses, no evidence. Clean it up. Diego smiles. He can do that. He's very good at cleaning up. Upstairs, Maria watches from behind her bedroom door as Abuela and the soldier named Marcus have a hurried, whispered conversation. She can't hear everything, but she catches enough. The men downstairs. They're looking for him. They're going to search building by building. Maria's heart is pounding so hard she thinks it might burst out of her chest. She's scared, more scared than she's ever been, but she's also angry. These men, these monsters, they killed this soldier's friends, they killed her father, and now they're here, in her home, threatening her grandmother. She makes a decision, a brave one, a stupid one, a necessary one. She slips out of her room while Abuela and Marcus are focused on the window. She grabs her jacket, the one with the deep pockets, and she heads for the door. Behind her, Ranger's head comes up. The dog watches her, his intelligent eyes seeming to understand what she's planning. For a moment, Maria thinks he'll bark, will alert Marcus. But instead, Ranger does something unexpected. He follows her. Maria tries to wave him back, but the dog is insistent. He's not leaving her. She looks at his determined face, at the way he's positioned himself between her and the door, protective even of her now. And she understands. They're partners now, all of them. Her, Abuela, Marcus, and Ranger. and partners don't let each other face danger alone. "Okay," she whispers, "but you have to be quiet." Together, the 8-year-old girl and the military war dog slip out of the apartment and head downstairs. Maria has a plan. It's not a good plan. But it's all she's got. She's going to buy them time. Maria's plan is simple in the way that only a child's plan can be simple. She's going to create a distraction. She's going to make sure these men in their expensive suits and their cold eyes waste time looking in the wrong places while Marcus, her grandmother, and somehow hopefully everyone she cares about gets to safety. It's not sophisticated. It's not tactical. But it's brave. And sometimes brave is all you've got. She and Ranger take the back stairs, the ones that smell like mildew and old cooking oil, the ones nobody uses except when they're trying to avoid being seen. The dog moves like a shadow beside her, his paws silent on the concrete steps, his body low and alert. He knows they're hunting. He just doesn't know they're the ones being hunted. The ground floor of the building opens into a narrow service corridor that leads to the alley behind the bodega. Maria can hear voices from the front of the building, angry voices demanding answers in Spanish. They're questioning Don Esteban, the bodega owner, asking if he's seen a wounded American, a big dog, anything unusual. Don Esteban is old and stubborn, and Maria knows he'll tell them nothing even if he knew something. But these men, they won't just ask. They'll threaten. They'll hurt. They'll tear the place apart looking. Maria needs them to follow her instead. She edges toward the alley entrance, her heart hammering against her ribs like it's trying to escape. Ranger presses against her leg, and she can feel the tension in his body, coiled spring tight. She takes a breath, says a prayer her grandmother taught her, and then she runs. She bursts into the alley, her sneakers splashing through puddles, making as much noise as she can. Behind her, Ranger barks once, sharp and loud, a sound designed to carry. And it works. She hears shouting from the front of the bodega, hears running footsteps, and when she risks a glance over her shoulder, she sees 2 of the men rounding the corner, their guns drawn. They see her. They see the dog. And Maria watches as recognition flashes across their faces. That's the dog, which means the girl knows where the American is. One of them shouts in Spanish, "Stop! Stop or we shoot!" But Maria doesn't stop. She runs harder, Ranger keeping pace beside her, and she leads them deeper into the maze of alleys that she knows like the back of her hand. These are her streets, her neighborhood, and she uses every advantage. She cuts through a gap between buildings that's too narrow for grown men to follow easily. She vaults over a chain-link fence that Ranger clears in a single bound. She ducks under scaffolding and around dumpsters, always moving, always staying just far enough ahead that they won't give up the chase. Behind her, the men are cursing, struggling to keep up. They're fit, trained, dangerous. But they don't know these streets. They don't know that the alley that looks like a dead end actually has a gap in the wall that a small girl can slip through. They don't know which fences have loose boards and which ones are solid. Maria does. And she's using every bit of that knowledge to keep them chasing ghosts. But here's the thing about running. Eventually, you get tired. Eventually, you run out of places to hide. Maria's legs are burning, her lungs screaming for air, and she can hear the men getting closer. They've learned the territory now, cut off her escape routes. She rounds a corner and finds herself in a small courtyard behind an abandoned restaurant, and her heart sinks. It's enclosed on 3 sides, the only exit the way she came in. She's trapped. The 2 men appear at the courtyard entrance, breathing hard, their weapons raised. They're not smiling. They look angry, frustrated, and very dangerous. One of them is speaking rapidly into a radio, calling the others, telling them he's got the girl and the dog. The other one, younger with a scar across his cheek, steps forward. "Where is he?" he demands in Spanish. "The American. Where are you hiding him?" Maria backs up until she hits the wall. Ranger is in front of her, his hackles raised, his teeth bared. He's growling now, a deep, continuous sound that vibrates through the air. The men stop, eyeing the dog warily. They know what a trained military dog can do. They know that even with guns, this animal could tear out a throat before they could pull the trigger. The older one speaks into his radio again. "We need Diego here." The girl won't talk, and the dog is protecting her. They're at a standoff. Maria is terrified, but she's also defiant. She glares at the men, her small hands clenched into fists. "I don't know what you're talking about," she says, her voice shaking but clear. "Leave me alone." The scarred one laughs, but there's no humor in it. "Little liar. You were helping him." "We know you were. Tell us where he is and maybe we don't hurt you." That's when Ranger lunges. He doesn't go for the men, though. He's too smart for that. Instead, he grabs Maria's jacket in his teeth and pulls, hard, dragging her toward a pile of old crates stacked against the wall. Maria doesn't understand at first, but then she sees it. Behind the crates, there's a gap, a narrow space that leads to a drainage tunnel. It's small, too small for the men, but maybe, just maybe, big enough for her and the dog. She doesn't hesitate. She squeezes through the gap, scraping her arms on the rough wood, and Ranger follows, his body barely fitting. Behind them, the men are shouting, trying to move the crates, but they're heavy, bolted to the wall. By the time they clear a path, Maria and Ranger are gone, crawling through the darkness of the tunnel, heading toward safety. They emerge 6 blocks away, in the shadow of a church Maria has known her whole life, Iglesia de Santa Maria del Carmen. It's old, built in the 1800s, with thick adobe walls and a bell tower that leans slightly to the left. Father Miguel has been the priest here for as long as Maria can remember, a kind man with gentle eyes and hands that are always warm when he places them on your head for a blessing. Maria stumbles up the church steps, her legs shaking, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Ranger is beside her, limping now, and Maria realizes with a jolt of guilt that he's reopened the wound on his flank. There's blood on his fur, fresh and bright. The church door is heavy, old wood bound with iron, but it swings open silently when Maria pushes. Inside, it's cool and dark, lit only by votive candles flickering in red glass. The smell of incense and old stone wraps around her like a blanket. She's safe here. Churches are sanctuary. Even bad men respect that. Except these men, Maria is learning, don't respect anything. Father Miguel appears from the sacristy, his cassock swishing around his ankles. He's in his 60s, thin and tall with silver hair and eyes that have seen too much suffering to be surprised by more. But when he sees Maria, bloody and terrified with a wounded military dog at her side, his eyes widen. "Maria, child, what has happened?" She doesn't get a chance to answer. The church door bangs open and Diego Salazar walks in, flanked by his men. He's not holding a gun, not in a church, but his presence is weapon enough. He's calm, controlled, his expensive suit immaculate even after the chase through the alleys. He looks at Father Miguel, then at Maria, then at Ranger, and he smiles. "Father," he says, his voice respectful, polite even. "I apologize for the intrusion, but that child has something that belongs to me. Information about a man I'm looking for. I need to speak with her." Father Miguel steps between Diego and Maria, his body language shifting. He's not a large man, not intimidating in any physical sense, but there's steel in his spine now. "This is a house of God, Señor Salazar. The child has sought sanctuary. I cannot allow you to harm her." Diego's smile doesn't falter. "I have no intention of harming anyone, Father. I simply need answers. Surely you understand. A man was wounded near here, a dangerous man, an American soldier. The child knows where he is, and it's in everyone's best interest that I find him first. The soldiers who come to my church are not dangerous, Father Miguel says quietly. They are lost. They are seeking peace, like all of God's children. There's a moment of tension, thick and suffocating. Diego's men shift, hands moving toward their concealed weapons. But Diego raises a hand, stopping them. He's not stupid. Killing a priest in his own church would bring heat he doesn't need. Not even his bosses could protect him from that. Very well, Father, Diego says, his voice hardening. But understand this. That girl, that dog, they lead me to the American. And if you shelter them, you shelter him. That makes you part of this, and I promise you the protection of the church only extends so far. He turns to leave, his men following, but at the door, he pauses, looking back. You have until morning, Father. Then I come back with more men, and we search every inch of this building, sanctuary or not. The door closes behind them, and the silence that follows is deafening. Father Miguel locks the door, throws the heavy iron bolt, and turns to Maria. His face is pale but resolute. Come, child. We need to get you somewhere safe. And we need to talk about the soldier you're protecting. He leads them down, beneath the church, to a basement Maria didn't know existed. The stairs are narrow and steep, carved from stone, and they descend into darkness broken only by Father Miguel's flashlight. At the bottom, there's a large room with a low ceiling, supported by thick wooden beams. It smells musty, unused, but it's dry and it's hidden. This was part of the original mission. Father Miguel explains, lighting an old oil lamp. Built when this territory still belonged to Mexico. The priests used it to hide families during the revolution, during the wars. It's been forgotten by most. But not by me. He brings blankets, water, food from the church kitchen. He tends to Ranger's wound with surprisingly practiced hands, cleaning and rebandaging it properly. And then he sits across from Maria, his eyes kind but serious. Now, child, tell me everything. And Maria does. She tells him about finding Marcus in the alley, about the bullets and the blood. She tells him about Abuela helping, about the men coming to the bodega, about the chase. She tells him about the fear in Marcus's eyes when he said they'd kill him, kill Ranger, kill anyone who helped. When she's finished, Father Miguel is quiet for a long time. Then he sighs, a sound that seems to carry the weight of years. I know Salazar, he says softly. I know what he does, the poison he spreads through this community. I've buried children killed by his drugs. I've consoled mothers whose sons vanished after refusing to work for him. He is, I believe, one of God's lost lambs. But he is also very dangerous. Maria's voice is small. Did I do wrong? Helping the soldier? No, child. Father Miguel's hand is warm on her head, the blessing she's always known. You did what your heart told you was right. You showed mercy to someone who needed it. That is never wrong. But now we must be wise. We must find a way to protect you, your grandmother, and this soldier. And I think I know someone who might help. He goes to an old wooden cabinet in the corner of the room and pulls out a battered satellite phone, the kind Maria has only seen in movies. He dials a number from memory, and after several rings, a woman's voice answers, sharp and alert, even though it's late. Agent Chen, Father Miguel says. It's Father Miguel Reyes from Iglesia Santa Maria. I'm sorry to call at this hour, but I have a situation. I need your help. Agent Sarah Chen of the Drug Enforcement Administration hasn't slept properly in 3 days. She's been working a case that keeps hitting dead ends, following leads that evaporate like morning mist, chasing ghosts through a network so well protected it might as well be invisible. So when her phone rings at midnight and she sees Father Miguel's name, she's alert instantly. The priest doesn't call unless it's serious. She listens as he explains the situation, and with each word, her blood runs colder. A Delta Force operator, wounded and in hiding. A cartel hit squad hunting him. A little girl caught in the middle. And Diego Salazar, a name she knows well, personally leading the search. "Father," she says, her mind already racing through protocols and procedures. "I'm 40 minutes away. Don't move. Don't let anyone in or out. I'm bringing backup." She makes 3 calls as she's grabbing her gear and heading for her car. The first is to her partner, Agent Torres, telling him to meet her at the church with a tactical team. The second is to her boss, waking him up and briefing him on the situation. The third call, the most important one, she makes as she's speeding down the highway toward El Paso. It's to Fort Bliss, to the Special Operations Liaison Office, asking about any missing Delta operators. The response she gets makes her grip the steering wheel tighter. All operators accounted for. No active missions in the area. No casualties reported. Which means Marcus Cole is a ghost. Officially, he doesn't exist. Officially, he's already dead. And that means whoever ambushed his team, they had inside information. They had help from someone with access to classified mission details. There's a leak, and it's high up. Sarah's been in law enforcement long enough to know what that means. It means she can't trust normal channels, can't file normal reports. Because whoever the mole is, they'll hear about it, and Diego Salazar will know she's coming before she arrives. She makes a 4th call, this one to a number she's only used twice before in her entire career. It's answered on the first ring by a voice that's pure gravel, pure authority. Colonel Travis Hayes, Joint Special Operations Command. "Who is this?" "Agent Sarah Chen, DEA. "Sir, I have one of your operators. He's alive but compromised. And I think you have a security breach." There's a pause then. "Operator name?" "Marcus Cole, Delta Force, listed as KIA, 48 hours ago." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Give me your location. I'm scrambling a team." And Agent Chen, "Trust no one local. No one. The line goes dead." Sarah arrives at the church to find it surrounded, not by police, not by her own people, but by Diego's men. They're not making a move, not yet, but they're there, a dozen of them in the shadows, watching, waiting. She parks 2 blocks away and approaches on foot, her badge clipped to her belt, her hand resting on her sidearm. Father Miguel lets her in through a side door, moving fast. "We don't have much time," he says. They're getting bolder. They know something is happening. Sarah follows him down to the basement, and that's where she meets Maria, this tiny, fierce girl with eyes too old for her face. And Ranger, the wounded warrior dog who growls at her until Maria whispers that it's okay, she's here to help. "Where's the operator?" Sarah asks. "Still at my apartment," Maria says, her English accented but clear. "With my grandmother. We couldn't move him. He's too weak." Sarah's mind is calculating logistics, escape routes, tactical options. She needs to get Marcus, Maria, and her grandmother out of El Paso entirely. Needs to get them somewhere safe while JSOC sends a team to extract Marcus properly. But with Diego's men watching the church, and undoubtedly watching Maria's building, moving anyone is going to be nearly impossible. That's when her phone buzzes with a text from Agent Torres. "We have a problem. Just got word from HQ. There's a flag on the case. Someone high up is asking questions about why I'm mobilizing a tactical team. We might be compromised." Sarah's blood runs cold. The leak isn't just in the military. It's in her agency too. She looks at Father Miguel, at Maria, at the dog who's watching her with intelligent, assessing eyes. "We're on our own," she says quietly. "Whatever help I thought was coming, it's not. We have to assume everyone except us is compromised." Father Miguel nods slowly. "Then we use the old ways. Before there were agencies and task forces, there were people helping people. I know others, good people, who will help us move them. A network." "You're talking about smuggling routes," Sarah says. "Moving people across borders without official notice." "I'm talking about railroad," Father Miguel corrects gently. the kind that saved lives during darker times. We get them out of the city, away from Salazar's reach, and we trust that God and good people will do the rest. It's risky. It's outside every regulation Sarah has sworn to uphold. But looking at Maria's face, at the trust in her eyes, Sarah knows it's the only option. "All right," she says, "but we need to move now, before Diego runs out of patience. They're planning the extraction, drawing maps on the basement floor when they hear it. A sound that makes Ranger's head snap up, makes Father Miguel freeze mid-sentence. The church doors, the heavy ones upstairs, are being battered. Diego has run out of patience. Men are shouting, wood is splintering, and Father Miguel looks at Sarah with fear in his eyes for the first time. He's breaking sanctuary. He whispers, he's never done that before. He must be desperate. "They are coming down," Sarah says, drawing her weapon. "And I can't fight them all." Maria stands, her small body rigid with determination. "Then we run. Like before, we know places they don't." She's right. The basement has another exit, an old tunnel that Father Miguel says leads to the rectory next door. It's narrow, dark, and partially collapsed in places, but it's a way out. Sarah makes a decision. She can't protect them by fighting. She protects them by running. They move into the tunnel, Sarah leading with her flashlight, Maria and Ranger in the middle, Father Miguel bringing up the rear. Behind them, they hear the basement door crash open, hear Diego's voice echoing through the stone chamber, furious and cold. "Search everything. Find them. Now!" The tunnel is claustrophobic, the walls pressing in, the air thick with dust and age. Sarah has to crouch to move forward, and in places the ceiling has caved in, forcing them to crawl. Maria moves through it like she's done this before, and Sarah realizes that maybe she has. This is her neighborhood. These are her escape routes. They emerge in the rectory cellar, gasping for breath, covered in dirt. Father Miguel leads them up and out through the rectory's back door, into an alley that's blessedly empty. But it won't stay empty long. "My car is 2 blocks north," Sarah says. "We get there. We drive straight to your grandmother's building, we get Marcus, and we go." No stops, no hesitation. They run through the dark streets, a DEA agent, a priest, a little girl, and a military dog. The most unlikely team imaginable. And behind them, somewhere in the night, Diego Salazar is realizing they've escaped. And he's making a call to someone with the power to mobilize even more resources, someone whose voice makes strong men afraid. The voice answers, annoyed at being woken. "This better be important, Diego." "They're running," Diego says. "The girl, the priest, and now a DEA agent. They're going for the American, and sir, if they get him to talk, if he tells what he saw at the compound—" "Then stop them," the voice interrupts, cold as death. "Use whatever resources you need, call in favors, I don't care. But that soldier dies tonight. The agent dies. The priest, the child, anyone who's helped them. Burn it all down if you have to. We cannot let this information get out." "Consider it done," Diego says. And just like that, the stakes have been raised. This isn't just a manhunt anymore, it's a purge. Sarah doesn't know it yet, but she's not just fighting Diego Salazar. She's fighting a network that reaches into the highest levels of law enforcement on both sides of the border. She's fighting a corruption so deep and so entrenched that even her own agency has been infiltrated. They reach her car and pile in. Sarah guns the engine, and they race through empty streets toward Maria's building, toward Abuela and Marcus, toward what she hopes is an escape. But what they don't know, what they can't know, is that Diego is already ahead of them. He's already sent teams to Maria's building. And by the time they arrive, the building is surrounded, the exits blocked, and Diego himself is climbing the stairs to the 3rd-floor apartment, where an old woman and a wounded soldier are about to make their last stand. Sarah pulls up a block away and sees the SUVs, sees the men with weapons, and she knows with sick certainty that they're too late. She looks at Maria, sees the horror dawning on the child's face as she realizes her grandmother is trapped. "No," Maria whispers. "No, no, no." "Abuela." Sarah's hand is tight on the steering wheel. She's trying to think, trying to find a tactical solution, but there isn't one. She's one agent with a sidearm against a dozen cartel soldiers with automatic weapons. Going in means dying, and dying means leaving Maria and Marcus unprotected. But then Ranger does something extraordinary. The dog has been sitting in the back seat, panting, watching. But now he's focused on the building, his body tense. And Sarah realizes he's not just a military working dog. He's Marcus's partner. He's been trained for this, for combat, for rescue. She looks at the dog, then at Maria. Can he get in there? Can he get to them? Maria's eyes are wide, but she nods. There's a fire escape. In the back. He can climb it. He's done it before when I sneak him treats. Sarah makes a decision that's probably going to end her career if she survives this. She opens the back door. "Ranger," she says, using her command voice. "Go. Protect. Find Marcus." The dog doesn't hesitate. He bolts from the car, a shadow in the night, racing toward the building. Sarah watches as he disappears around the back, moving with purpose, with intelligence, with loyalty that transcends species. And somewhere up on that third floor, Marcus Cole hears a familiar sound. Paws on metal. A weight landing on the fire escape platform. And then a nose pressing against the window, and eyes he'd recognize anywhere. Ranger has come home. And he's brought a message. Hold on. Help is coming. We're not giving up on you. But the question is, will help arrive before Diego's men break down the door, and what will be left to save when it does? Stay with us because what happens next will leave you breathless. The fire escape window slides open with a soft scrape of wood against wood, and Ranger flows through it like liquid shadow. Marcus is on his feet despite the agony screaming through his shoulder and side, his borrowed pistol aimed at the window until he sees those familiar, intelligent eyes. The relief that floods through him is so intense it's almost painful. "Ranger," he breathes, and the dog is across the room in 2 bounds, pressing against Marcus's legs, whining softly. The dog's presence isn't just comfort, it's information. If Ranger came alone, if Maria sent him, it means they're out there. It means they're planning something. It means he's not fighting this alone. Abuela emerges from the kitchen, a butcher knife in her weathered hands that looks absurdly small against the threat outside. But there's no fear in her eyes, only a fierce determination that Marcus recognizes. She's a survivor. She's fought her own wars. They're in the hallway. She says quietly in English. 6 men, maybe more. They're preparing to breach. Marcus moves to the door, his body protesting every step but his mind clear and tactical. He's done hostage rescue. He's done room clearing. He knows how a breach team thinks, how they move. They'll use a battering ram or explosive charges on the hinges. They'll come in fast, 2 through the door, 2 following, the rest holding the hallway. They'll expect him to be weak, disoriented, alone. They're wrong on all 3 counts. He looks around the tiny apartment with fresh eyes. It's not a death trap. It's a tactical advantage. The door opens inward, which means the first man through is committed, off balance. The apartment is small, which negates their numbers. And Marcus, even wounded, is still Delta Force, still one of the most highly trained close-quarters combat specialists in the world. He starts moving, his hands working quickly despite the pain. He drags the heavy couch across the room, positioning it at an angle that creates a funnel. Anyone coming through that door will have exactly 1 path, and Marcus will control it. He tears down the curtains and soaks them in cooking oil from Abuela's kitchen, creating makeshift smoke bombs. He breaks apart a chair, creating improvised weapons, pieces of wood that can strike, can stab, can disable. Abuela watches him work, and understanding dawns on her face. "You're not running," she says. "Can't run," Marcus replies, checking his pistol. 7 rounds. Not enough to fight, but enough to make them cautious. If I run, they follow. They find Maria. They find everyone who helped me. No. This ends here. The old woman nods slowly. Then we make them pay for every inch. Outside the door, Diego Salazar is losing his patience. He's got his men positioned, his weapons ready. But he's thinking about that DEA agent, about the priest, about the girl who keeps slipping through his fingers. Every minute he wastes here is a minute they're getting further away, calling in reinforcements, building a case against him. "Breach it," he orders. "Now." The first man, a thick-shouldered enforcer named Raul, swings the battering ram. The door holds for 1 hit, 2, then the frame splinters and it crashes inward. Raul and another man, Carlos, rush through together, rifles up, scanning for targets. What they find is smoke. Thick, oily smoke filling the apartment from the burning curtains Marcus has placed strategically. It's not enough to choke them, but it's enough to obscure vision, to make them hesitate, to break their momentum. Raul takes 2 steps into the apartment and his foot catches on wire. Marcus has strung ankle height between the couch and the wall. He goes down hard, his rifle clattering. Carlos, right behind him, trips over Raul's falling body. In that moment of chaos, Marcus moves. He comes from the side, from an angle they didn't clear, moving with speed that shouldn't be possible for a man with 2 bullet wounds. His hand, wrapped in cloth to protect his knuckles, drives into Carlos's throat, a precise strike that crushes the windpipe. Carlos goes down gasping, drowning on air. Marcus grabs the man's rifle as he falls, spins, and slams the butt into Raul's face as he's trying to rise. Bone crunches. Raul collapses. 2 down in under 3 seconds. The third man through the door, younger and faster, gets his weapon up. But Ranger is there, a snarling missile of teeth and fury, hitting the man's gun arm and dragging it down. The rifle discharges into the floor, deafening in the small space, and then Ranger's jaws are on the man's wrist and he's screaming, dropping the weapon. Marcus kicks it away and brings the rifle he's holding around, using it like a club to strike the back of the man's knee. He collapses, and Ranger releases, moving back to Marcus's side, blood on his muzzle, his eyes bright with combat focus. In the hallway, Diego hears the chaos and realizes his tactical advantage just evaporated. The American isn't cowering. He's fighting, and he's winning. Diego makes a decision. He pulls a grenade from his belt, pulls the pin, and tosses it through the doorway. It's not a fragmentation grenade, it's a flashbang, designed to disorient and disable. He waits for the detonation, for the blinding light and deafening sound that will leave the American helpless. But Marcus sees it coming. He's been watching the doorway, waiting for the next move, and he sees the small cylindrical object arc through the smoke. "Flashbang!" he screams, and dives behind the overturned couch, dragging Abuela down with him. Ranger is trained for this. He's already moving to cover, pressing himself into the bathroom doorway. The grenade detonates with a sound like the end of the world. White light fills the apartment, so bright it burns through closed eyelids. The pressure wave slams into Marcus's chest, makes his ears ring, turns his vision into a whiteout of pain. But he's been flashbanged before, trained to operate through it, and he knows he has maybe 5 seconds before the next wave of attackers comes through. He pushes himself up, his movements automatic, muscle memory overriding pain and disorientation. He can barely see, can barely hear, but he doesn't need to. He knows where the door is. He raises the rifle and fires blind, 3 controlled bursts at chest height where he knows the doorway is. He hears screaming. He hits someone, but there are too many of them. Diego sends 4 men through at once, overwhelming the space, and Marcus is forced back. He's still, fighting, still moving, taking down one man with a strike to the temple, another with a knee to the ribs. But there are too many hands grabbing him, too many bodies pressing him down. His wounded shoulder explodes with pain as someone twists his arm behind his back. His side is bleeding again, fresh blood soaking through the bandages. He goes down to his knees, his vision blurring, and he sees Ranger trying to get to him, the dog fighting with desperate fury. But they have tranquilizer darts now. They came prepared for the dog, and Marcus watches in horror as one of them fires, as the dart catches Ranger in the shoulder, as his loyal partner stumbles, tries to keep fighting, and then collapses, his eyes rolling back. "No," Marcus gasps. "No, leave him alone." Diego Salazar walks through the doorway, stepping over his wounded men, his face a mask of cold satisfaction. He looks at Marcus, at this soldier who's caused him so much trouble, and he smiles. "You fought well," he says in accented English. "But it's over now." He pulls his pistol, a chrome-plated .45 that probably cost more than most people make in a year, and he aims it at Marcus's head. "Any last words, American?" Marcus looks up at him, and even through the pain, even through the defeat, there's defiance in his eyes. "Yeah," he rasps. "You should have brought more men." Diego's finger tightens on the trigger, and that's when the windows explode inward. The tactical team that comes through those windows isn't DEA, isn't local police, isn't anyone Diego Salazar could have prepared for. They're Delta Force, a full 6-man team in black tactical gear, moving with synchronized precision that looks like choreography, but is actually the result of thousands of hours of training. They fast rope from a helicopter that appeared out of nowhere, silent and dark, a ghost in the night sky. They hit the apartment like a hurricane. Flashbangs go off, but these ones are theirs, timed and placed to disorient Diego's men without affecting their own team. Suppressed weapons fire with soft coughs that are somehow more terrifying than loud gunshots. Diego's remaining men go down before they can even turn around, hit with non-lethal rounds that drop them like puppets with cut strings. Diego himself tries to run, tries to make it to the door, but a massive operator, easily 6'4" and built like a tank, cloths lines him. Diego hits the ground hard enough to bounce, and then there are zip ties on his wrists and a knee in his back, and a voice in his ear saying, "United States Military, you're under arrest for assaulting a federal agent and a member of the United States Special Operations Command." The team leader, a lean man with silver at his temples and eyes like chips of ice, kneels beside Marcus. His name tape reads Hayes, and Marcus recognizes him. Colonel Travis Hayes, JSOC, the man who commands the men who command Delta Force. "Cole," Hayes says, his voice rough but not unkind. "You look like hell." "Feel worse, sir," Marcus manages. And despite everything, despite the pain and the blood and the fact that he nearly died, he almost smiles. "Ranger?" One of the operators is already there, a medic checking the dog's vitals. "He's okay," the medic reports. "Just tranquilized. He'll wake up with a headache, but he'll be fine." The relief Marcus feels is overwhelming. He looks around for Abuela, finds her sitting against the wall, shaken but unharmed, one of the Delta operators offering her water and speaking to her in gentle Spanish. She's safe. Ranger's safe. Maria is somewhere out there with Sarah Chen, and if Colonel Hayes is here, that means the extraction is complete. The mission is over. He's done. He survived. Hayes helps him to his feet, supporting his weight. "We've got a lot to debrief, Cole. Your team's deaths, the ambush, this entire mess. But first, we get you to medical. Real medical, not grandmother with a sewing kit medical, no offense to the lady." Abuela, who understands more English than she lets on, waves a dismissive hand. She understands. As they're moving Marcus towards the door, towards the helicopter waiting on the roof, he sees Sarah Chen arrive with Maria. The little girl's face lights up when she sees him, sees her grandmother, and she runs past all the intimidating operators in their tactical gear to throw her arms around Abuela. The two of them hold each other, crying and laughing and speaking rapid Spanish, and Marcus watches them and thinks about what they risked, what they sacrificed, for a stranger bleeding in an alley. Colonel Hayes notices his expression. "They're heroes, you know," he says quietly. "The girl, the grandmother, the priest. Real heroes. We're going to make sure they're taken care of." "Yes, sir," Marcus says. "And, sir, the intel. What I saw at the compound in Juarez, it's important. It's bigger than just a cartel operation." Hayes nods. "I know. That's why we're here. That's why this whole thing got elevated. What you stumbled onto, Cole, it's not just drugs or weapons. It's a pipeline that reaches into our own government, into Mexican federales, into places we thought were secure. You pulled a thread and the whole damn tapestry started unraveling." He looks at Diego Salazar, now being loaded into a black van by federal marshals. "And that gentleman right there is going to tell us everything. We have ways of making cooperation very appealing. By the time we're done, we'll have the whole network, every name, every route, every corrupt official on both sides of the border. You did that, Cole. You and a little girl who was brave enough to help a stranger. 3 months later, the world has moved on the way it always does. The news cycle that briefly focused on the massive joint DEA and military operation that took down a major trafficking network has shifted to other stories, other crises. But for the people involved, everything has changed. Maria Reyes sits in a classroom that's nicer than any she's ever been in. The desks are new, the books aren't falling apart, and the teacher, Mrs. Patterson, actually smiles when she asks questions. Maria is thriving here, her quick mind finally given the resources it deserves. The private school scholarship came from an anonymous benefactor, but Maria knows who it's from. She's not supposed to know, but she does. Abuela is in the apartment they share, a new apartment in a better neighborhood, paid for by that same anonymous benefactor. She's cooking, filling the space with the smell of tamales and fresh tortillas, and she's happy. The nightmares from that night have faded, replaced by pride. Her granddaughter is going to have opportunities she never had. That's all she ever wanted. Father Miguel still serves at Iglesia Santa Maria del Carmen, but the church has been renovated. New roof, new windows, fresh paint. The congregation doesn't know that a significant donation came through, only that their prayers were answered. Father Miguel knows, though, and every Sunday he says a special prayer for soldiers far from home and for the children brave enough to help them. Agent Sarah Chen got promoted. Her role in breaking open the corruption case, in coordinating with JSOC, in protecting civilian witnesses, all of it went into her file. She's running her own task force now, going after the people the initial operation identified. She's good at her job, and she's making a difference. But sometimes, late at night, she thinks about that little girl who ran through alleys with a military dog, and she wonders if she could have been that brave at 8 years old. She doesn't think so, and Diego Salazar is in a federal supermax prison, in a cell designed for the most dangerous criminals in America. He's cooperating, giving up names and routes and bank accounts, hoping for a deal that might let him see daylight again before he's an old man. He won't get it. What he did, what he ordered, there's no walking back from that. But the information he's provided has saved lives, shut down operations, protected communities. Justice is complicated. Sometimes it comes in messy packages. It's a Saturday afternoon when the knock comes on Maria and Abuela's door. Maria opens it, and her face splits into a grin so wide it hurts. Marcus Cole stands there, and he looks different. Healthy, strong. His shoulder has healed, his side has healed, and he's wearing civilian clothes, jeans, and a simple button-down shirt. But it's not just him. Beside him, tail wagging like a metronome, is Ranger. The dog's wound has healed too, leaving just a faint scar under his fur, a badge of honor. When Ranger sees Maria, he pulls at his leash, and Marcus lets him go. The dog bounds forward and Maria drops to her knees, hugging him, burying her face in his fur while he licks her face and makes happy whining sounds that dogs make when they're home. Marcus walks in, and Abuela embraces him like he's her own son. She feeds him, of course, because that's what grandmothers do, and they sit around the table, this unlikely family. And they talk. Marcus tells them about his recovery, about the therapy, about the investigations that are still ongoing. He tells them he's been reassigned stateside to Fort Bliss, training the next generation of operators. He tells them he'll be in El Paso for at least 2 years. He doesn't tell them that he requested the assignment specifically to be close to them. They figure it out anyway. And I was thinking, Marcus says, his voice carefully casual. I've got weekends free mostly. And Ranger, he needs exercise. He's been asking about a certain little girl who he misses. I thought maybe if it's okay we could visit sometimes. Maria looks at her grandmother, hope shining in her eyes. Abuela pretends to think about it, but she's smiling. I suppose, she says in her accented English, if you promise to come for dinner, and if you bring that appetite, a man your size you need to eat. It's a deal, Marcus says. And so it begins. A new chapter. Most Saturdays, Marcus and Ranger show up at the apartment. Sometimes they take Maria to the park and teach her how to throw a ball for Ranger. Sometimes they sit and do homework together, Marcus surprisingly patient as he helps with math problems. Sometimes they just exist together, this bond formed in violence and blood now transforming into something softer, something that looks a lot like family. Marcus teaches Maria things without really meaning to. He teaches her that strength isn't about size or weapons, it's about character. He teaches her that loyalty is a choice you make every day. He teaches her that heroes don't wear capes, they make hard choices in difficult moments, and they live with the consequences. Maria teaches Marcus things too. She teaches him that healing isn't just physical, it's emotional. She teaches him that family isn't always blood, sometimes it's the people who show up when you need them most. She teaches him that joy can exist even after trauma, that laughter can fill spaces that grief carved out. And Ranger, well, Ranger is just happy to have his person back and to have new people to love. He's a military working dog with a combat record and commendations. But he's also just a dog who likes ear scratches and treats and the way Maria giggles when he does his tricks. On a Sunday afternoon, 6 months after that night in the apartment, Marcus takes Maria and Abuela to Fort Bliss. He's giving them a tour, showing them where he works, introducing them to his team. The other operators, these hard men with dangerous skills, they treat Maria like a princess and Abuela like a queen because Marcus has told them the story. They know what these 2 civilians did, the risks they took, the courage they showed. In the special operations community, courage is the coin of the realm, and Maria and Abuela are rich beyond measure. At the end of the tour, Marcus takes them to a small ceremony. It's private, just his unit and a few brass from JSOC. Colonel Hayes is there, and he calls Maria forward. The little girl, suddenly shy in front of all these important people, walks up slowly. Miss Maria Reyes. Hayes says, his voice formal but warm. It is my honor to present you with the Citizens Award for Valor in recognition of your courageous actions in rendering aid to a United States service member under hostile conditions. Your bravery and quick thinking saved lives and contributed to a major victory against transnational criminal organizations. The United States military is grateful for your service. He pins a medal on her shirt, and the room erupts in applause. Maria's eyes are wide, her hand touching the medal like she can't quite believe it's real. Abuela is crying, happy tears this time. And Marcus, standing off to the side with Ranger at his heel, is smiling with pride. Later, as the sun is setting and painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink, Marcus and Maria sit on a bench outside the base commissary, sharing ice cream. Ranger is at their feet, patiently waiting for any drops that might fall. It's a perfect moment, quiet and peaceful and normal in a way that both of them needed. Maria, Marcus says, his voice thoughtful. You know what you did that night? Finding me, helping me. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. Maria licks her ice cream, considering. I was scared, she admits. Really scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. Marcus tells her. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. You saved my life. You saved Ranger's life. And you helped stop some very bad people from hurting others. That's what heroes do. Are you a hero? Maria asks, looking up at him with those knowing eyes. Marcus is quiet for a moment. I'm just a soldier, he finally says. I do a job. But you? You're the real hero. You made a choice to help when you didn't have to, when it put you in danger, when no one would have blamed you for walking away. That's the hardest kind of bravery, the kind that doesn't come with training or orders, the kind that just comes from your heart. Maria thinks about that. Then her face gets serious. If I'm a hero, she says, does that mean I have to eat all my vegetables? Marcus laughs, a sound that's becoming easier, more natural. Yeah, kid. Even heroes have to eat their vegetables. That's the rule. And that's the story. It's not about the combat or the tactics or the weapons, though those things were important. It's about a little girl who saw someone who needed help and didn't look away. It's about a grandmother who risked everything to do what was right. It's about a priest who offered sanctuary when it would have been safer to close the door. It's about a soldier who fought not just for his country, but for the people who showed him kindness when he had nothing left. It's about courage, the quiet kind, the everyday kind, the kind that changes the world one decision at a time. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that heroes walk among us every day, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. Tell us about your own hero. And please, if you believe in the power of courage and compassion, subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the best of humanity. Before we go, we want to pray for everyone watching this. May you find the courage to help when help is needed. May you be blessed with people who will stand by you in your darkest hour. May you know that you are never truly alone, that goodness exists, and that one act of kindness can ripple out and change everything. If you believe that love is stronger than fear, and that light always overcomes darkness, type Amen in the comments below. Let us know you're part of this family. Let us know you believe. Thank you for watching. Be safe. Be brave. And remember, you never know when you might be the hero someone desperately needs.